Okay, so welcome everybody to our second talk with Tim Burkett of the Minnesota Zen Center. Tim was the guiding teacher of the Minnesota Zen Center for decades and was really a leader within the Zen Center, helping to build it over many, many years and training all the people that are currently running it today. And he still plays a very active role in mentoring them and mentoring the community and teaching and leading in all sorts of ways. And we're just so blessed to have him here. He talks a lot about Taoism in his talks for the Zen Center and elsewhere, and is talks about how Zen is really a blend between Taoism and Buddhism. So there's just a lot of rich overlap there. And he also has a strong connection with our lineage with Stuart, because they both came from the Minnesota Zen Center. Stuart started at the Zen Center before he met T.T. Liang and became a Taoist, but he always considered himself a Buddhist too. So they share a lot of connections, which I've mentioned in the emails and last time. So with that, I will turn it over to Tim, who's going to continue giving our talks on the way of the butterfly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lily. Good to see you all. Some of you I can see, some of you I see your names. So we'll start with a 5-minute sit. Let me see if I have my bell. I'm going to get my bell and make sure the musician is on. So we'll sit for 5 minutes quietly, just doing whatever kind of meditation we like to do to just calm down, to be more present, to feel a vivaciousness inside that's coming out from what Zhuangzi calls the valley of the universe, our own still nature, the valley of the universe. So let's just sit and feel that for 5 minutes. Just letting the thoughts pass through like clouds in an endless blue sky. or waves in a deep, still ocean. I'm going to turn off the musician because sometimes having it off helps people hear me. Can you guys hear me okay? Raise your thumb or something if you can. Okay, cool. I'm titling this series The Way of the Butterfly because as I talked about in my last talk, which is I gave at Minnesota Zen Meditation Center, and you can find online. I titled it The Way of the Butterfly because Zhuangzi's most famous story, the Taoist teacher I'm talking about, is about a dream he had about a butterfly and then waking up and saying, oh, was I the butterfly who now dreaming I'm a Zhuangzi, or am I Zhuangzi who is dreaming I'm the butterfly? And there are a lot of commentaries on that in Taoism and in Zen. So that's the title of the series. And this is the third talk in this series, the second with you guys. And I'm just going to be quoting Zhuangzi several times. Remember, he's the second of the great early Taoist teachers, the first being Lao Tzu, who had the Tao Te Ching, who did the Tao Te Ching, or the way and its power. Zhuangzi. Things are the way they are because we think they're that way. Good and bad, acceptable or unacceptable, they conform to the way we see them. And this reminds me of Shakespeare, who I'm sure didn't read Zhuangzi, but you never know. Hamlet says, nothing is good or bad, only thinking makes it so. This doesn't mean that bad stuff doesn't really happen. Of course it really happens. We lose someone we love. Or tornado rips through a neighborhood, as happened in Jamaica just now. There's war, there's famine in Gaza, all those people starving in Gaza. And then there's the demise, I hope not the demise, but the potential demise of our democracy. And there are all the species that are potentially being annihilated, including the monarch butterfly, by our not attending to climate change. But research suggests that our depression, our anxiety, our worries aren't because of the big negative life events. They're because of our negative judgments and response is to stuff that happens in daily life. I get stuck in traffic. I have a rip in my new pair of pants. My dishwasher broke. These are the things that get us down. This negative lens that we have grinds us down. And yet, Shakespeare and Zhuangzi are always reminding us there's nothing either good or bad, only thinking makes it so. We can stop making negative judgments about our daily life events, and we can experience some liberation, some freedom from a lot of unnecessary suffering. So, a friend of mine last year, he had a dream of throwing football with his 9-year-old boy. He had 3 girls and finally he had a boy to throw football with. So he dreamed that he would throw football with him, and the 9-year-old boy seemed to be into it. And so they went out in the backyard. The dad showed him how to do it. He threw the ball to the son. The son that looked at him looked away and threw the ball into the neighbor's yard, into the bushes, and starts laughing. And the neighbor got the ball, the father got the ball, and threw it again at him. And his son looked at him and threw it back into the bushes. So we talked about this, my friend and I, and we realized that what's wrong with walking over to the bushes, getting to the ball, and throwing it to the sun? Then if the son throws it in the bushes, his son's having a blast, just go fetch it. Have a blast with him. Just have fun with him. So he chose to think of the game in a different way, my friend, who was a Zen student, so he should have thought it in a different way. He should have thought of it. We can always change our experience from a negative to positive. We can always do that, whatever it is. And again, it's not the big events that bowl us over. It's the daily events. It's the situations and interactions that we choose to find joy or suffering in. It's so easy to be the fault or the critic of someone else or ourselves. Instead, Zhuangzi says, all things are good and acceptable. Only thinking makes it anything else than that. So I had a student named Michael, whose mother got Alzheimer's. And initially he was sad and confused, of course. But then he realized that he could attend to the details and be there for her and grieve the self that left and enjoy the self that is here. All things are good and acceptable. They conform to the way we see them, says Zhuangzi. So someone I was mentoring, his first mantra, he had been a Shakespeare major in college. So his first mantra that he began repeating himself kind of spontaneously every time the inner critic would take over was thinking creates good and bad. And little by little, he didn't suffer so much because he kept reminding himself of that, kept reminding himself over and over. And he was able to think about many different situations in new ways and find joy in unexpected places. So I had a second person with Alzheimer's who was a friend, and his wife has Alzheimer's. He was a friend of mine. And after a while, he said he was grieving the wife that he had lost. But then he was finding joy in this new version of her, which was in which she'd forgotten all the things she was mad about. And wow, there's always a new version. We can, if we just stay with it and be with it, we can find some vivaciousness right in whatever version is passing through. Why not? Why not? All things are good and acceptable. They conform to the way we see them. So I had Lyme's disease, which I recovered from probably 5 or 10 years ago. But I had it I was in charge of the Minnesota Zen Center. And so I couldn't be there as much as I wanted to. Maybe that was 10 years ago I got rid of it, or it went away on its own. So I had to learn how to meditate in bed. And I did. I learned how to meditate in bed. Just be with my breathing, just not try to go anywhere, just not think about anything. Thoughts would pass through, but I didn't dwell on them. I learned how to do it. So now it's been 10 years. If I drink too much tea during the day, I'm very caffeinated, very caffeine sensitive, and I wake up in the middle of the night. Oh, I can just practice lying on my back and breathing and have a wonderful 2 a.m. meditation. Wonderful, wonderful. And if we can all do this, we can all do this. All things are good and acceptable. So I retired a little earlier, much earlier from the Zen Center than I'm 82 now, so I retired maybe at 75, I don't know, maybe 77. But afterwards, I thought, oh, it's time to retire. But then I regretted it. I regretted it because I liked being a guiding teacher. I liked giving talks and leading retreats and mentoring people. But after a while, I realized that all I gave up was the administrative stuff, and good and acceptable, just as doing this, good and acceptable. At 78, at 82, who knows how long I'll be able to do it before I too expire. Inspiration, expiration, respiration, breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. That's how life goes by. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. So the secret to this, if there is a secret, is just fully engaging in whatever activity we're doing. And there's this famous Taoist adage that then became a Zen adage. When you sit, just sit. When you walk, just walk. Whatever you do, don't wobble. But I changed it. I had to change it to when you sit, just sit. When you walk, just walk. When you wobble, just wobble. At my age, there's a lot of wobbling going on. When you wobble, just wobble. So when I gave my last talk at the Zen Center, after my talk, somebody extended an arm to me to help me up. I thought, oh, and I had a good time. They helped me up and I left. And then my friend said to me a few days after, said, that was a good talk. My friend who's my age, he said, but somebody had to help you up. and that's what he remembered, that someone had to help me up. So then I thought, oh, I should have helped myself up, and I got embarrassed. But then I just laughed at myself. When you get embarrassed, just get embarrassed. You don't have to turn it into something. Just let the embarrassment pass through. Everything passes through. I think you know what I mean, but you need to just be where you are. That's all you need to do. And you don't need to, because you're where you are anyway, so you might as well just join with it. That's really the teaching, the core teaching of both Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi. So when we do this, we're able to move on beyond the small, constrained, scary self, the self that's scared, that that stays closed because it's been hurt by people or afraid of being hurt, to open up to something larger, something larger. Zhuangzi and Zen Master Dogen both call this move beyond. They don't say move beyond, but I say embrace the self that rides on dragons. That's their phrase, that rides on dragons. A self, as Zhuangzi says, that rests on the pivot of no thingness, is one that really can ride on dragons. Do you get it? You rest on the pivot of no thingness. You can do that. You can do that. Here's Zhuangzi. When we find the pivot, we find ourselves at the center of the circle. And here we sit, serene, while yes and no keep chasing each other around the circumference endlessly, endlessly. When we find the pivot, we find ourselves at the center of the circle. And here we sit serene, while yes and no keep chasing each other around the circle endlessly. At the pivot, we discover that we're an emanation of the valley of the universe. What Zhuangzi calls the Tao, his metaphor is the valley of the universe. The little of self, the little scared self within the big self, within the big self. So now I'll do a little guided meditation, like just three or 4 minutes. So why don't you each close your eyes. Take 2 or 3 nice deep breaths. And then experience your body as an object to the eye, which is in the middle of your head. You know that eye in the middle of your head pretty well. Experience your body as an object to that eye. See it, feel it, sense it as an object. And then say, I am more than this body. I am more than this body. I am more than this body. And then when you're ready, move into I am more than the different parts of my body. I am more than the different parts of my body. I am more than the different parts of my body. Continuing to breathe, feeling whatever you feel. And whenever you're ready, I am more than my sight, my sense of sound, my sense of touch. I am more than my senses. I am more than my senses. I am more than my senses. And then there are your internal organs, your digestion, your excretion, your breathing, your circulating blood. I am more than my 5 internal organs. I am more than my 5 internal organs. I am more than my 5 internal organs. Now, attending to your thoughts, what are you thinking? What are you thinking right now? I am more than these thoughts. I am more than these thoughts. I am more than these thoughts. Okay, 2 or 3 deep breaths, and then coming back to the room. Zhuangzi says, joy, anger, grief, delight, worry, regret, modesty, willfulness, insolence are music from the empty holes. Music springing up in, like mushrooms springing up in dampness. Music from empty holes, mushrooms springing up in dampness. Day and night replacing each other, self and other replacing each other, before and after replacing each other. But I do not know what makes them the way they are, says Zhuangzi. It would seem as though they have some true master, and yet I find no trace of him. And yet I find no trace of him. Then he goes on, the 100 joints, the 9 openings, the 6 organs, all come together and exist here as my body-mind. But which part should I feel closest to? It would seem as though there must be some true Lord among them. But whether or not I succeed in discovering his identity, it neither adds nor detracts from the Tao, the source and the center of the big self. The source and the center of the big self. The pivot of no thingness. Within the valley of the universe, everything is a wonderful expression of that valley. Even the little pain in my stomach I have right now is a wonderful expression of that valley. And Chuangzi is urging us indirectly to experience this for ourselves, which takes periodically, daily, steeping ourselves in silence, patiently and persistently steeping ourselves in silence, so that we can move beyond the limitations of our senses, beyond the limitations of our thinking mind, and find that we can dwell within this place which is not a place, but which is limitless and loving, which is limitless and loving, the valley of the universe, in Chuangzi's terminology. In Hindu terminology, Mother Kali, who is the dark mother, totally dark. In Buddhist literature, Mother Prajnaparamita, the mother of all the Buddhas, the valley of the universe. Mother Kali, Mother Prajnaparamita, loves all her children equally, including your own small, scared self, including your own small, scared self. So Stephen Mitchell says, as you honor yourself, both your big and small selves, you're honoring the Tao. And Stephen Mitchell also says, if Hamlet had understood his own words, he would have lived happily ever after. Hamlet, who made that statement about neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. If he'd really understood it, he would have lived happily ever after. But we have the opportunity, Zhuangzi is telling us, to settle into this pivot of no thingness, this valley of the universe, which is completely invisible, totally dark, totally empty, called by the Zen master Hongzhi the empty field. He says, cultivate the empty field. The empty field is fallow and it seems barren, but within this field, all life has germinated. It grows, it thrives. Birth and death, says Zhuangzi, birth and death, profit and loss, day in and day out, they vanish into each other, and we don't know where they come from. Deep not knowing, the pivot of no thingness. So my friend and my student, whose significant others have Alzheimer's, what's the relationship going to be like going forward? They don't know. They have no answers. At times, the important questions in life have no answers. But if we return to the pivot of no thingness, we appreciate what my teacher said about beginner's mind. In the beginner's mind, there are many opportunities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Too often we forget or we forget or overlook the empty field, the valley of the universe in which we are emanations of. Can we aspire? Let's all aspire to a new life, not constructed based on projections that the small self has to keep feeling steady and permanent and solid, but a big life, maintaining, as Zhuangzi says, the balance between whatever opposite he enters. She enters, they enter. Maintaining the balance, because the little self gets caught on one end. And yet we can appreciate both ends within the valley of the universe. They're both manifestations of that valley. So I don't know. Let's see, I had you all on screen, but now I don't. I don't know how many of you have seen. It would be good. Oh, let's see. A lot of you are dark anyway. Well, so I won't ask you to raise your hands. I don't know if you've seen the movie by Wim Wenders. I talked about it at Zen Center maybe 6 months ago, about the Japanese toilet cleaner. Have any of you seen that movie? Say yes if you. Oh, you're all muted. Oh, but I see a couple of you have seen it, so you're raising your hand. Yeah, the Japanese toilet cleaner. So he's a Zen toilet cleaner. I mean, there's no Zen, isn't even mentioned, but he just spends his time engaging in cleaning these toilets. These are the public toilets in Tokyo, one public, and he keeps it immaculate, and he gives himself, regardless if he's had a bad day, if he's gotten up and he's groggy from being hungover because he's a drinker. He just takes care of the toilet, each of the aspects, each of the details. So this public toilet is immaculate, much more immaculate than any toilet I've ever sat on. And so this is an expression of his connectedness and his sense of resting on no thingness, manifesting itself as the toilet seat, as the bowl, as the rest of his life. So it's beautiful Zen movie. On the other hand, my teacher, this is the kind of world my teacher, Suzuki Roshi, Suzuki Roshi, thought he was coming to when he came to the United States, because he had a tutor, a British tutor, Miss Ransom, in Japan. And she and he did everything properly and daintily. They had tea at precisely 3 o'clock in the afternoon with crumpets and sugar and everything laid out in a very articulate, specific, detailed way. And she was interested in Zen. So my teacher wanted to do what? He wanted to come to that country where everybody did that and they were interested in Zen. Some of you have heard me tell this story over and over. I've told this story many times, but not lately. And so finally, when he was in his mid to late 50s, he got a chance to come to the United States to be the minister for the Japanese people in San Francisco. Well, this is actually the late 50s. This is the beatnik movement and the end of the beatnik movement and the beginning of the hippie movement. So he was hoping to enter Miss Ransom's world, but instead he entered into what he called an upside down world. For a Japanese person, this was an upside down world, which orderliness was not important, in which doing things in a particular prescribed way was considered stupid and conventional. And we all tossed it out. We tossed it out. But because he knew how to rest on the pivot of no thingness, he wasn't deterred. He may have been a little deterred, but he never showed it. He adjusted. He adjusted. And so when we had a Zenefit in San Francisco and Janis Joplin sang, and it was totally disorderly, totally. The room was full of incense and smell of marijuana and people dancing and people half naked. He just sat there and watched it all. And when Janis Joplin got up to sing, she completely gave herself to the music, and he was amazed, because there she was, totally giving herself, totally involved in the activity, totally not caught by before or after, acting from some deep sense of connectedness to everything and everyone. So when he got up to talk, because he had to, it was the Zenefit was for him, for our Zen monastery, he said, "At first I think your way very different from ours, but now I see not so different, not so different." Everybody cheered, smoked extra dope, did more dancing around. So he was able to adjust. And that's why we have a Zen center here in Minneapolis today, because our teachers were able to just let go of this burden of thinking and open up to just the joy of being where you are, being where we are. And he kept saying to me for months afterwards, "Boy, that woman, what her name?" I said, "Her name, Janis Joplin. Jan Joplin, that woman, she has Zen mind, beginner mind, no?" And I said, "Yes, yes." So this is the teaching that Zhuangzi had passed on to the Zen teachers, which they have passed on to us. So that's what I wanted to see today. That's what I said today. And I'm happy to move it. I'm happy to have questions from any of you who are online, or, oh, you're all online. You're all online. Questions or comments from any of you?
I just want to say, when you were doing the meditation that where you went through, I am more than this, I am more than that. I kept thinking of the Heart Sutra, where it sort of says, "I am not this and not that." How do you reconcile those two things, or what would you say about that?
They're exactly the same. I am not just this. I am more than it. So that if we let go of all of our small stuff that negates, we're everything. Everything, we feel connected to everything. But the process of negating any kind of activity or feeling or thought that we're stuck on can be a way to open. I tend to not emphasize that because so many of my students are into putting themselves down. But it's this, we negate everything so we can affirm everything. We negate the small things we're caught on, all the OCD behaviors that we have, all the habits, so we can open up to something beyond those. But doesn't mean we kick out the small stuff ultimately. We embrace it. We embrace it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But when you say more than this, aren't you sort of somewhat reifying what you're?
Yes, yes. So reify, it means to get caught by the name.
Okay.
Anything we name, we tend to get caught by it. I'm the teacher. I'm the teacher. If I get caught by that, I'm not, I lose my love for you because I'm the one. But if I'm the one, you're the one. Of course. If I let go of thinking I'm the one, we're all the one. And the one is the two. The one is the many. As Zhuangzi says over and over again, within the many is the one. Within the one is the many. Within the negation of all life is the affirmation of everything. So we're no longer negating in this kind of depressed way. We're negating in an affirmative, spacious way, which sounds contradictory, but not when you feel it. Not when you feel it.
Could you say that maybe there are just two different methods? not this.
Well, we could
all this.
say, when I teach Zen, I say that the Heart Sutra leads to the Huayan Sutras. So the Heart Sutra, which negates everything, leads to the affirmation of everything. So in the central metaphor, which actually I talked about in my last Taoist talk at Zen Center, is in Zen, that I love the most, is the Indra's net. Indra's net, each jewel, the Tim jewel, the Lawrence jewel, the David jewel, the Stuart jewel, is separate, and yet all the other jewels are included within it. It mirrors all the other jewels. If it tries to be anything other than the Tim jewel, it doesn't realize that all the jewels are already reflected in it. But if Tim calms down, if he completely returns to no-thingness, he feels the wonderful connection to all the jewels, which are the entire universe. So I tend to teach the Heart Sutra, and the negation is the preparation for opening up to the fact that within this little jewel are all the jewels, the affirmation of the affirmation of the affirmation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
When you were doing the meditation and I am more than the heart. I am more than I had this thought while you're doing it that I am both more and less than.
That's right. That's better Zen. I don't know if it's better Taoism, but it's better Zen. You're more than and you're less than. Yeah, of course, Taoism also talks about how we get caught by measuring. When we let go of measuring, then more or less, in between, hernia, no hernia, 82 years old, 28 years old, 2.8 years old, all measurements. Let's just be where we are. Just be where we are, you guys. We need that measurement stick, but Zhuangzi is always poking fun of the measurement. And so are the great Zen masters. How we get caught by their measurement, and then our life is based on measuring. And we can just let go of it. It's a convention, an important convention, but we don't need to base our lives on it. If we base our lives on Japanese Zen, where everything is precise and particular and orderly, or on beatnik Zen, beatnik Taoism, where everything is just spontaneous, either of those, if we get caught by them, they create the same problems for us.
It does make sense. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Well, we have a little bit of time more. Looks like we have about 10 minutes. So anybody else? Or would you rather just sit in meditation?
I shared a link here because when you told the story about your friend with the football, it reminded me of that story of the monk, like the colonists in India who were playing golf, and there were monkeys that were stealing the golf balls, and they couldn't do anything to stop it, and so they ended up making a rule that you have to play where the monkey leaves the ball.
I never heard that story.
Like,
That's a great story. Where does that story come from? Well, it's just a great story, and it just comes, you know. Yeah, well, that would be interesting. And the British were so wedded to golf, and I can just imagine that. I like that one. Who else would you just like to sit quietly and steep ourselves in silence for the remaining time? Who else?
yeah, it's such a great talk. I just really love what you said, like resting on the pivot of nothingness and then aspiring to a life that's not based on the projections of the small self to keep things seeming steady, and then to aspire to a life based on the big self and that pivot of nothingness. And then what you said about the jewel, that if you deny your own jewel and you just like try to completely negate that, you're not going to get the feeling of the connection and the interdependence. But when you rest in that jewel and go deep into it, into the nothingness within it, then that's when you can.
Yeah. Thank you, Lily. So in Buddhism, we talk about, especially in Zen, emptiness, 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 emptiness. But what's the synonym for emptiness? In all the literature, the synonym for emptiness is inner penetration, inner being, dependent co-arising of everything, which is love. It's love, you guys. It's love. Before we say love, it's love. As soon as we say love, it's not love. Do you understand what I mean? It's love, because interconnectedness, inner being. So emptiness is love. I mean, it just is. You can feel it. I don't care if Buddhists don't talk about love and Taoists. I just know that's what it is. I know. But it's not our usual idea of love. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that.
Well, I think we'll end then. And Lily, you would do whatever you do to close.
Yes, thank you so much, Tim, for this talk, and thank you everybody for being here. It's so wonderful to see you all and to share this space and this discussion with you. And we're going to be continuing on with the meditations on the other Sundays, except for the first Sunday of the month. This talk is going to go back to being the first Sunday of the month, starting in December again and going forward with Tim. And then we'll be getting it together soon to start reviewing Stuart's talks and having discussion groups on those very soon. So you'll have an email about that in the near future, now that Patrick and Susan have moved here. So.
And I'd like to welcome people to come to online or in person to Zen Center for my next talk on the Way of the Butterfly, which is at Zen Center on, I think it's November 23rd. It's also recorded, and then I'll be back with you guys. So I'm giving the series moving in between the two centers, which maybe I shouldn't do because everybody gets all confused, but confusion is fine.
Well, I think it's cool because it, can kind of, people can check things out on both sides. I think Taoism and Buddhism well, everybody knows they go so well together. So, it can be good to go back and forth. And yeah, you can find in that email that I sent out about this talk, the link to the last talk from the Zen Center. And then you can just go to the Zen Center's website. It's right on their homepage, how to access the Sunday talk if you want to see it live. Otherwise, it'll be put up on their YouTube channel, and we'll also send that out. So great. Well, thank you everybody so much for being here. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend and week ahead. Bye.
Bye.